Alright everyone, yesterday the greatest tweet of all time was made, a link in the description, of course coming from our own esteemed President Donald Trump, but like in the last video, like I said, having someone who is essentially a method actor projecting various illusions of themselves in the Donald Trump sense is a very good thing. It's very good to have a president like Donald Trump, especially at such a tumultuous time with foreign policy. Kim Jong-un is not going to press the little red button because he got insulted on Twitter. But he may start to make mistakes because he actually thinks he believes the projection of Donald Trump. He's Shakespearean. Scott Adams explains it in terms of persuasion. I explain it in terms of the Shakespearean. You have to be very, very good at projecting illusions. You have to be good with propaganda. It goes beyond the moist robot stuff. That's definitely a component. But at first it relates to self-control. We know that Trump has self-control. Apparently he's never tried cigarettes or any drugs and sipped champagne once, I guess, in his whole life. That's pretty good restraint for someone who could have had all sorts of vices because he has all sorts of money. Apparently with females, it's a little bit of a different story. But, everyone has their problems, Everyone has something. Sometimes they indulge a little bit too much. It gets them in a little bit of trouble. With me, it's I drink coffee all day. Managed to quit the cigarettes, though. I did do that. I think it's 30 days actually out that I've been a non-smoker. So, yeah, feels pretty good. There's a reason I'm not clearing my throat so much anymore, except after I gurgle the coffee down the wrong way and have difficulties. But Trump has also come out. He insults Kim Jong-un, basically calls him short and fat. And it was funny to see the reaction from the left. Now, their reaction was essentially defending Kim Jong-un. I wonder if they realize how bad that actually looks. I wonder how bad it is with his tweet regarding Russia as well, saying, well, we should have a good relationship with Russia and conduct diplomacy. And by the way, Hillary and Obama both failed to do this with their Russian reset bullshit. He's right. The left is right now arguing for antagonizing the only other nation in the world with enough nuclear power to actually pose an existential threat to us. There is no other nation in the world that we're not a solid ally of, like the UK, France, China, we're a major trade partner. Who else contains the firepower to destroy us? The DPRK? Bullshit. The DPRK is a threat to the DPRK, the South Koreans, the Japanese, and to parts of China and Russia. They are not a threat to the United States beyond maybe a couple of carrier groups. We could flatten the DPRK in 10 minutes without them even really getting a chance to fire back, if we so chose to do so. That would be genocidal and I would oppose it. I would much rather have a coordinated general attack that focuses just on their military capabilities, and we hope that there are no significant reprisals. Yes, I would say that even in regards to lives here or in South Korea, to spare 10 times more people in a nation that are basically slaves, you're basically trying to liberate them. What the fuck is the point of wiping 99% of them off the face of the earth? I have no problem with the North Korean people. People suggesting, oh, just nuke Pyongyang. You do realize that that would be condemned by everyone else in the world. It would make us a pariah. Deploying a nuclear weapon, especially against basically an enslaved civilian population of several million people, would not be good for our diplomacy. In fact, long term, it would probably cause our nation to collapse, so think twice about your idea there. Trump then says, hey, yeah, I believe Putin when he says that he didn't meddle in the U.S. elections. Then he does a 180 almost, but I'll try to explain what he's actually doing, because a little bit of wordplay. It's the Shakespearean thing again. Then he comes out and says, oh yeah, of course I believe U.S. intelligence when they say the Russians meddled in the U.S. election. What he's doing is splitting verbal hairs. His own fans, this is a dog whistle to them in many cases. What he's doing is saying, yeah, I believe that Russia attempted to meddle, but I don't believe it was successful. That's essentially what he's saying. Or that the Kremlin itself wasn't what ordered it up. Putin himself did not actually give the order, it came from lower down. It's splitting hairs. But it's an explanation that technically he's right. He's probably right. Putin himself probably was not directly involved with such an effort. But there are certainly groups within Russia that do attempt to meddle and hack and do espionage. They've been doing this forever. The U.S. does this. If Vladimir Putin came out tomorrow and said, oh, I think the U.S. is trying to meddle in the upcoming Russian election, of course he'd be right. It's just a matter of what form did it take. If he claimed that the U.S. at the presidential level commanded that their entire election should be hacked, which was apparently the original claim of our legacy media hero, would be false. They probably couldn't pull it off, and they probably wouldn't bother to try to pull it off. It might be seen as an act of war, cause such a breakdown in relations that it literally restarts the worst aspects of the Cold War, as in, hey, Russia's going to scrap the partial test ban treaty. Yeah, we're going back to at least underground nuclear tests. Fuck yourself. We can build as many nukes as we want now because you've pissed us off too much. I'm sure Russia would be kind of worried about the U.S. doing the same thing if push came to shove. I think are we literally trying to give the government carte blanche to begin nuclear testing or something? I'll tell the Democrats something. Here's something you don't realize. The propagandists of the legacy media appear to be setting you up for Cold War Round 2. And that means that eventually they're going to convince you that it would be better to go back to like nuclear tests and the literal Red Scare propaganda, like billboards everywhere saying, oh, Red's under the bed, be careful who you talk to, report your neighbors to the police, essentially. You are gearing up to a situation where they've got you almost paranoid enough to make the argument that you should do that. Be fucking very careful about how you tread now at this point. Then Trump's also attacking Clinton, basically saying she's a failure. I'm surprised he didn't mention Uranium One last night. I'm surprised he didn't, do a little bit of a reverb of a recap of what he had already said before. Some weeks ago he mentioned, he's like, oh, why aren't we investigating this? This is like Watergate 2.0. By the way, again, he is correct about that. There should be a full investigation of what happened there. Apparently, the FBI agrees with him because they already conducted an investigation at the time. It was just sort of shoved to the side because a nuclear deal was struck thereafter. I think Obama told him to shut up, and he wasn't concerned. And don't worry too much about that money going into the Clinton Foundation. And by the way, I control the FBI's budget, basically. Congress will do what I say on this, so, screw yourselves. I don't think that Comey was a big fan of Obama after all. And he's also gone after Comey in recent days. We can't forget that either. Now, it's more dangerous to go after Comey. Comey is such a wild card. Nobody likes him. Maybe he's trying to get the left to jump aboard with liking Comey before Comey comes forth, testifies to Mueller, oh yeah, the Democrats did dirty things. Maybe that's the point. Maybe he's doing a little old switcheroo on them to get them to... He's giving them enough rope to hang themselves, basically. As for the Putin, as for the Kim Jong-un thing, I side squarely with Trump on that. It's not warmongering to insult a foreign leader. We're talking about North Korea. We're talking about a total pariah. The Chinese just unilaterally said, yeah, we're going to increase sanctions too. That's the first time that's happened, and nobody else had to push or prod. China came out in the wake immediately of meeting with Trump. Trump meets with Jinping. A few hours later, oh, China's going to increase sanctions. Why do you think they did that? What do you think Trump told him? He gave him some sort of offer. Or he alluded to, hey, this deal that you really like, we're going to have to renegotiate it. Although, if you increase sanctions on North Korea, we could probably wait for a while on bothering to do that. That's the way you negotiate. China wants money. They don't want any trouble. Trump will throw all sorts of money their way. Basically what he's done, it's sort of like a reverse of the DACA stuff. What he's done with China is told him all the horrible things he could and really wants to do to them. Now he's saying, but I could always back off a bunch of this stuff in return for something that ultimately is not substantial. The Cold War is over. We want to be a friend of China. I don't really care about the human rights stuff. You're trying and you're developing. Who fucking cares? But the North Korea issue, we got to solve it. We're going to need you to, at the very least, step aside. We'll take care of it. Maybe we can even pay you off. Maybe you help take care of it. That's basically what's going on here. It's the reverse of the DACA deal where Trump smooths things over and says how wonderful DACA is. Oh, I'm going to give you the moon on a stick. He gets the Democrats real excited. And Pelosi and Schumer, they come out on live TV and tell everyone how wonderful Trump is, how wonderful DACA is, how they're negotiating, it's going so well. And then he drops the floor out from under them and says, no, you have to give me everything that I want to get DACA back. When did I ever say you didn't? And they get all flustered and they sort of back off. Now he's gonna, go halfway and say, okay, well, give me this slightly lessened version of what I want. Instead of bombing the sanctuary cities, I'll just defund them with the blessing of Congress. The Democrats will have to vote to do that and recognize federal supremacy over immigration law, finally. instead of the whole fund half of it and we'll return to the other half later, because, it'll take time anyway. That's what he wants. Negotiator in chief. Other people have alluded to this, and a lot of times people ignore them. And as for Putin, yeah, his comment with regards to Putin, his two comments that seem contradictory are not technically contradictory because of the form in which they take. He's talking, the first comment is about Putin as a person, as an individual. It's not about the Russian state conducting espionage or hacking or Russian groups aligned with parts of the former KGB or something meddling with a voting machine. That's a totally separate issue. He's saying, well, Putin said he didn't meddle in the election. I kind of believe him. Putin, of course, meanwhile, who I think is, honestly, on this token, I think he might be helping Trump. Either that or Trump is managing to backstab Vladimir Putin, which is no small task, and trick him. Putin comes out and says, well, that wasn't exactly the conversation that we had. So now Putin has to come out and look an ass, basically, and make it look like he's saying, yeah, we did. Sorry, I said before we didn't meddle in the U.S. election, but 2 days later now, all of a sudden, I'm saying, yeah, kind of, sort of, we did. I didn't tell Trump we didn't. I just told the Russian people that I didn't. But in other words, it might be Trump's way of joking around and making Vladimir Putin lie. That would be actually very funny. For a former KGB, someone who's, during the Obama era, Vladimir Putin was seen as like the senior world partner because Obama was so ineffectual. Now Trump's back on top. I think he may have just tricked Vladimir Putin, which is something that I can't see Obama having pulled off. It's funny, people now, they're saying, oh, Merkel is the world leader. Now, Germany, bullshit. Germany is meaningless. They rule the EU, which is an ass-backwards confederacy that will never fully federalize unless it loses half of its land area. Okay, Merkel gets her European army. It'll be half as large as the collective military force that currently exists there. It'll be ineffective, and Germany will eventually oversee the destruction of most of Eastern Europe. And I think Merkel's just trying to accomplish like the worst, most stereotypical things that people said about Adolf Hitler. I think that's honestly, well, yeah, wanted to kill off every other, even like other European groups, like even other white groups, sort of wanted to wipe them out. I think Merkel's trying to do that. Like she's becoming a comic book supervillain or something like that. It's crazy. I don't know. The state of the world is in chaos. I sleep better at night knowing that somebody who's basically a Shakespearean master like Trump is the one leading the country. As opposed to somebody like Clinton, very, very methodological, very by the book, doesn't really project very well, in fact has difficulty projecting any image at all, and is seen as basically frail old lady who's totally outdated. She's like a fish out of water in the internet era. That was her campaign. Trump, meanwhile, was fooling basically everyone, including most of his own fans, who even some of them, like the skinhead types, they were convinced that, oh yeah, Donald Trump, yeah, the left is right, he's secretly like a white supremacist, this is great, we're going to get a Nazi president. And of course, he never was. And no, he never was. They got fooled by him. He fooled them. And he'll fool them into voting for him again, trust me. Especially since the Democrats are going to put someone forward, probably. Unless they get smashed in the midterms and reform because they begin to fracture, they're likely to put up some boring wedge issue neoliberal in 2020. That person is likely to lose unless they are at the very extreme end of charismatic. That means they may have a shitty platform or no platform, but they're really, really good at speaking. They've got a lot of image. They're really young. They're really, really sly and chic, basically. They would have to do an image campaign, like a Trudeau campaign, in order to pull it off, I think, against Trump. Even that might not work. Might not save him. That's about all. Peace out.